is going on, everybody? Nasdorachi coming back at you again today with another episode for Dragon Ball Legends. And what we're going to be doing today is something we have done before, but is still extremely important. We are reclassifying the entire tier list and team guide for all of the new units that just released over Anniversary. I feel like enough time has passed now where we do have some accurate classifications and spots for all the new units, as well as where some of the older units have shifted to now that the meta has changed a little bit. Now, I will cover, why they may have moved around in their placements, but if you need a lot more information on some units that you're newer to the game, I do have 4 other tier list videos that have kind of choreographed the growth of this game over time. So they are in the Legends playlist on my channel. I do recommend you check them out just for the historical value on them. But this one will be up to date with the most accurate info. However, important note, it's going to be very, very important to note that the balance changes are going to be coming soon. So we do expect at least 5 Sparkings, you guys, to potentially shift around in this list within the next week or so. But with that being said, we have, enough information to just classify everything as it stands right now. So we're going to jump in and do that. And I do appreciate you. Hopefully you enjoy the show. So let's go ahead, pull up the first image here. This is going to be our tier list. Again, I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as I can for you guys. So let's just hop right in here. The super tier, the best characters in the game, the highest tier, is going to start with the Super Saiyan 2 Father-Son Kamehameha Gohan. He is the best damage dealing unit in the game under certain circumstances. Of course, the Son family team right now is probably the game's most effective team, comparatively speaking to every other team in the game. It is capable of extreme buff sharing as well as high damage, great support. There's not too many weaknesses in that team, which is why it's probably, again, the highest ranked team in the game right now. The Red Gohan, when he becomes an anchor character as the last unit left alive with all the associated buffs, not only is he extremely difficult to kill due to his color immunity, but his damage output is just absolutely insane, and the damage on his ultimate technique, absolutely ridiculous. This unit doesn't really exist for any other purpose besides dealing damage, and right now, he is the king of it. So, Gohan coming in at number 1, mostly because he's got the best team in the game and the best damage output. And coming up next here, we do have Super Vegito, another exceptional unit who is, by all rights, just as good as the Gohan in terms of a singular unit. But the reason he falls into number 2 here is because the Fusions team is not quite as developed as Son family. It's much more rigid, it has less options, and it has less tanking and support. So, for those reasons, you have Gohan number 1 and the brand new Super Vegito number 2. Again, he's capable of amazing self-damage increasing buffs. He can nullify endurance, so immortality passives mean relatively nothing to him. He's got a great counter mechanic on his swap in versus red cards, amazing ultimate arts technique. Just this character is kitted out the booty hole. Just an amazing kit for him. As soon as he launched, one of the best characters in the game immediately. So not too much to talk about there, just an exceptional character. I do expect him to hold his value and even increase in value as more fusion units continue to come out. So I don't think that the fusions meta is going anywhere in this game. We're going to be seeing units like Fuse the Masu. We're going to be seeing the blue versions of both Gogeta and Vegito someday. We're going to be seeing just other really exceptional fusion units, the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and I'm sure there are others, you guys. So we'll have great options for fusions moving forward, which is why the powerful fusions characters will probably always rank pretty high. Speaking of that, next up here we have Gogeta. He's a unit that's been in the game for a while and has always been in super tier somewhere. He's moved up a little bit because Fusion's team is a meta now. It is runnable as a complete team, and he is a pure nuke damage dealing unit. He's got a kit that's entirely focused around him dealing as much damage as possible, and as well he does have some team versatility on the Trinity or Super Saiyan 1 team, just like Vegito has. So that's cool that they have, multiple teams they can be run on, and that increases their value because they do have more versatility. But Gogeta here, just straight up damage dealer. His blue card is arguably one of the single best blue cards in the game, especially when you've comboed it with his green card to power it up. And that's about it. There's no real other purpose for Gogeta other than just doing as much damage as possible, and he's extremely good at it. Next up here, we do have Goten, another relatively new character, extremely powerful addition to the Son family team, right up there with Gohan, but a little bit different. So Goten is more functional in the beginning of the battle, during the middle of the battle, and he holds his value through the end of the value, doing extremely high damage, great ultimate arts technique, great buffs and synergy with Gohan and the rest of the Son family. The only difference is Goten is going to do a little bit less than Gohan under Gohan's ideal circumstances. So when Gohan is the last character left alive, again, he can delete entire teams, all 3 members, with relative ease if you play properly. Goten's not going to have as high damage output, but the trade-off for that is Goten is more useful throughout the entire battle, whereas Gohan doesn't really start to get the motion until, he is the last character left alive, or he's got a decent amount of buffs on him, say after the yellow Goku dies. So Gohan is a little bit more tricky to use, but is capable of higher potential. Goten is right up there, but just more useful throughout the whole fight, a little bit easier to use him, and not as risky of a unit to have to use. So he is in super tier, he is just rated here, because the Gohan is a little bit better, you guys. Next up, we have the Super Saiyan God Blue Goku, a unit that came into the game as a phenomenal unit. Kind of unexpected that he was even coming at this point in time, but I'm so glad they've moved forward with some of the super stuff, because now after this we can start to get to the really juicy stuff. But anyway, Goku here, amazing unit. He's got the best possible kit he probably could have. He's great in the early game. You can lead with him as a point character because he has amazing defensive buffs. As time throughout the battle goes on, he will continue to stack offensive buffs, ki restore speed, various other benefits to having him as time goes on in the battle. He's extremely tanky, he's capable of great damage output, and his main ability, while giving him an extra vanish immediately, can be used really effectively to kind of force the enemy to take a hit, because you'll have more vanishes available to you than they will, so you can fully take advantage of that. As well, God Ki team is now fully functional in the meta, and very similar to Fusions, I do not expect the God Ki team to be going anywhere anytime soon. It's going to be an up and up team. We're going to have, obviously, the Fusion units that are Super Saiyan God Blue that'll probably have God Ki. Again, we'll have the Fusion Zamasu, Rose, we'll have like the Kaioken God Blue Goku from when he was fighting Hit and the Champa saga. So there's going to be plenty of God units. I would assume even like Ultra Instinct someday is going to be like God Ki. So God Ki team is going to be permanently viable in this game. It's just, how often we get units for it that's really going to determine how much of a powerhouse this team is. But for right now, amazing team with great synergy. Definitely a top tier team. Alright, that's about it for the super tier. All those characters stand out exceptionally well and can really make or break their team design. And the same can pretty much be said for Z tier, you guys. These characters are all super exceptional. They usually just generally have one thing that's kind of working against them in some areas to prevent them from having been in the super tier, be it a little bit lower damage, a little bit less utility, or buffs that, expire over time and make it so that the character is only effective for a certain portion of the battle. Those are kind of things that will net an extremely good character in the Z tier as opposed to super. So starting off, we do have Golden Frieza, and he is one of those units that I just mentioned. Arguably, he could be at the tail end of Super Tier, but what prevents that is that the Lineage of Evil team is still missing a hard defense unit. They don't have a unit like Zamasu or like Piccolo, where they have the cover damage reduction, the amazing team heal, as well as just really high defensive stats. So you could say that the red Metal Cooler is close. He is tagged as a defensive unit. He does have a heal, but honestly, he is more of a combat support unit than a straight-up defensive unit. A lot of his kit revolves around like debuffs and buffs and deleting cards and just, doing trickery things that, again, to me, are more classified as support than defense. He does have the heal, but the heal is also more support than defense. When I think defense, I think, the endurance passive, I think of extremely good cover change damage reduction mechanics, and I think of stuff like that, where you can literally throw that character in front of attacks and not have to worry about them just instantly getting killed. So Lineage of Evil still missing that, and as well, the Golden Frieza is pretty much restricted to a rushdown role. Now, he is extremely good, you guys. He's leading the Z tier as the best character in Z tier. However, he does have that 60-second time window where if you're still playing the fight after that 60 seconds, he's going to lose all of his buffs, he's going to lose everything that makes him a really exceptional character, and he actually drops to pretty well below average. And that's pretty consistent with the movie as well. If you can remember in Resurrection of F or the ROF saga in the anime, he only has enough stamina to use this form for a short period of time because he hasn't properly trained with it. He basically attained it and then instantly went into battle against Goku and Vegeta and didn't know of his stamina limitations. So his kit for this Golden Frieza actually does make a lot of sense, and that's his main limitation, you guys. You have to use him quickly, you have to throw him in there, do as much damage as possible, and then sub him out for a character that usually can take hits a little better. Unless he's on color advantage, you guys. He can take hits pretty well under color advantage situations. But again, he's a rushdown character. You want to get as much damage done with Frieza as quickly as possible. And as soon as Lineage of Evil team gets some additional members, like the full power final form Frieza, maybe a golden cooler even, you never know. But I do expect, plenty of more Lineage of Evil units to come. Angel Golden Frieza. There's plenty of other options there, you guys. And I do expect that team to be on the up and up. It's really good right now, but again, you have to play very aggressive with it, and you have to protect yourself from getting beat up, because it's not a very defensive team. Next up here, we have the Super Saiyan Blue Adult Gohan from the Son family. He does provide crucial buffs to the Goten, the Goku, and the Gohan. Mostly just the Gohan and the Goten, though. He has a really good synergy with the Goten. He's got a scale and cover damage mechanic that, increases the defense he gets when he subs into damage. And overall, he's capable of really good strike damage, and he's got a pretty functional Ultimate Arts technique as well. Again, because Son family is so high in the meta right now in terms of their value, and this character brings some really good tanking and support to that team, is why he's honestly placed this high, you guys. He's an exceptional unit, but you may not always bring him in battle. For example, if you're running the Super Saiyan 2 Father-Son Kamehameha Gohan, Goten, the Yellow Goku, there are some situations where this Gohan may not see play. Next up, we have Ribrianne here, character that used to be in Super Tier. The only reason she's dropped down is because the females team is not quite as relevant right now as it was last season. We have a plethora of newer and extremely powerful teams, and while the females team can compete with pretty much everyone else in the game, they're just not as new and spiffy, and because there's lots of other powerful units out and no one's really running females as consistently now, that's why she has dropped down, you guys. We don't need to spend too much time on her. She's an exceptional unit, but just her team is her only drawback right now. Next up, Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta. Another exceptional unit, and he definitely belongs in this, high-end tier right here. The way that Vegeta works, and the reason why he's in Z instead of Super, is he's a very heavily specialized unit. You can't just throw Vegeta out there and try and brawl with him and expect to win most fights with extremely highly skilled players. There is a very specific way to use this Vegeta, and because of that, he's not quite as flexible as the Goku. He doesn't have the defense the Goku has, but he does bring the damage, so extremely good unit again. But the way that you properly play this Vegeta is basically you save him on the sidelines until you can guarantee a kill via his 2-second lock-in mechanic. So basically you get another character down to about half-life, then you'll want to sub into Vegeta mid-combo, do as much damage as you can, finish with an ult, a rising rush, or hopefully you can just kill that character within those 2 seconds, and then you sub Vegeta out, and you try and repeat that step again, and then you combine that tactic with Rising Rush, you can pretty easily just dominate an enemy team relatively quickly if you're playing properly and, the enemy is, losing and falling to your techniques. So Vegeta, again, extremely good unit, but he is a much more specific playstyle, and because he is not as flexible and he's a little harder to use, that's really the only reason why he's not in the same super tier as Goku. He doesn't pack the defense like Goku does, but he does have the damage again. Extremely good unit, but very specific in the way that you want to use him. His counter is also extremely good too, but you may not find that you're using it a lot because Vegeta generally doesn't want to just sit out and linger on the field. You want to sub him in to get those buffs, to get the card draw, to get the lock-in, and then once that stuff falls off, you try and swap him out and repeat that process, you guys. So that's the proper way to use your Vegeta right there. Next up, we have EX Whis coming into the game as the single best EX unit in the game currently, and as well, his stats do rival Sparking units' levels of stats, like new Sparkings even. He's right up there with them. He comes with enough buffs to offset whatever discrepancies there are in his stats as well. Like, he buffs himself damage by like 40%. When he subs out, he's got passives for God Ki that are somewhat similar to Super Saiyan Bardock, where he gives like 25% damage and 25% key recovery out to whoever he swaps into. If that unit happens to be Beerus, then those buffs are almost effectively tripled in terms of their value. But still, even without Beerus, perfectly functional unit. He does have your God Keys, 25% team heal. He can also rotate cards with his green card to help screw up the enemy by deleting their ultimate arts techniques after they've summoned them, or you can play out your entire hand and then instantly fill it back up. So again, highly competitive unit, has definite placement on the God Ki team, and you do usually want to use him in pretty much every single battle. There's only a few situations where you won't really bring him, like if you're up against like blue, blue, purple or something like that. You may not want to bring Whis. But again, for an EX unit, it's really only the namesake that he's EX. He really is a sparking unit, and the EX really only comes into play on his Z ability, which is not the best. And that's something we see with EX units. Sometimes they're extremely good units, but they don't always have the best Z abilities. Not always true, though. The Android EXs, they have great Z abilities. Next up here, we do have Buhan, coming into the game, an extremely powerful unit and filling the role for green characters on Regen team, which was previously championed by the green Piccolo. In my opinion, he's the next best green character for regeneration. The Buhan here essentially is like a version of Ultimate Gohan for your regeneration teams. He's got permanent stacking buffs. He can summon green cards, which function as a barrier that he can actually combo out of with red and yellow cards. Unlike, you know, the new green Broly, for example, who can only combo out of his barrier with blue cards, Buhan can combo out of his barrier with any arts card. So that's extremely valuable. The barrier also replenishes his health by like 15%. He can summon 2 of them when the enemy vanishes. You know, after that it stops working. But just a very exceptional unit, but does somewhat suffer from the curse of being green. Unlike Frieza, who can do such an overwhelming amount of damage that he pretty much neutralizes color disadvantage, this Buhan is not going to function well against purple units at all. One combo from the Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta can pretty much take him out. So you do want to be wary of that, play him properly. As well, he's lost a little bit of value, comparatively speaking, to the other new units you see above him, just because the regeneration team has lost a little bit of relevancy. There are other teams now that function on just as high of a level as regeneration, so they're kind of more equaled out now and not such as an oppressively powerful team as they used to be before. Buhan, again, great character, capable of insane damage, good utility, has a great kit, but hopefully regeneration will be getting the Kid Buu soon, that we can run almost an entire team of Boos. I am kind of excited for that, you guys. Next up, Zamasu, very well-known character, single best tanking and defensive unit in the game. He's just losing a little bit of value now because of the same reason. Regeneration teams are not as powerful as they were before, and as well, there are lots of units out now, like Vegito, like Goten, like Vegeta, that can just straight up nullify the endurance passives. Rildo over here as well. So it is a little bit more risky for you to just be throwing your Zamasu out willy-nilly nowadays, because a lot of relevant teams, again, are going to have those units that can just eat right through those endurance passives. So not as useful as it once was, and that's just why he's dropping a little bit in value here. Also, he's functional on future teams, and God Ki a little bit, so he does have some pretty decent team flexibility there. Next up, the Yellow Perfect Cell. He used to be the single best character in the game, even above the Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, but due to the Battle Version 2's changes to the combat system, and, you know, again, regeneration losing a little bit of team power, he is, you know, dropped down a little bit here, you guys. Cell was before the king of doing strike damage of frame trapping, especially with his green card, and just putting out absurd levels of damage. But again, because they have nerfed Strike Cancel, and because he cannot frame trap as effectively using the green card against an enemy that's doing a blast card from the back row, now that they can vanish out of that more quickly, he can't frame trap as well with that green card. So, again, between that and Regeneration not being the top team in the game anymore, he has dropped down a little bit, you guys. Also, lots of powerful red counters for him at this point as well, so you do have to be wary of that. He doesn't function super well on color disadvantage anymore these days with the new teams that are running the show. Next up here, my extremely good support unit, functional on females and future and red-red-green based teams, or green-green yellow. So she has pretty good team flexibility, an amazing kit, amazing set of buffs, amazing green card. However, her damage output is a little bit on the low end right there. So you do have to use her extremely well. But again, one of the best supporting units in the game for sure. Very, very exceptional unit. Next up, Purple Broly, a character that has dominated the game for so long, has now found himself in more of an even setting with a lot of the other characters in the game. When he came out, there really was no other powerful units in the game that got to his level and could challenge him, so he was king of the hill. Now we have characters like Vegito, teams like Son Family, Lineage of Evil, Regeneration that have so much damage versus Saiyans, or just damage in general, and the fact that the movies team that he mainlines is kind of falling off a little bit is why this Broly has dropped down a touch here. Still an exceptional unit, but he doesn't have an extremely good team right now. Again, movies and Trinity are his two best spots, or Purple, Purple, Red, but all three of those teams, they're not quite on the level of God Key, Son Family, LOE, and some of the newer teams. Now, I do expect the movies team to make a full recovery, you guys. Remember, we have plenty of other movies villains, like Hirudegarn, Tapion, Minosha would probably be a movies team. You'll have stuff, just all over the place. The transforming full power Android 13. We'll definitely have more movies units coming, which I do believe will keep this team relevant. But for right now, it has dipped down a little bit. And that's why Broly has suffered a little bit. Next up, the Yellow God Vegeta has actually increased in value dramatically because God Key team is a relevant thing right now. He buffs that team extremely well, and he is a great counter for Super Vegito, the purple Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, and as well Goten. So he does make a great addition to your God Key teams, and he will see battle pretty regularly if you're squaring up against a lot of other purple units. He's got a great combo breaker mechanic, he's got great strike damage output, and he really is your best option for, again, anti-Vegito, anti-Goten, and anti-other God Key teams with the blue Vegeta on them. So a very good unit, increased in value dramatically recently. Next up, the GT Kid Goku, one of your most effective blast damage dealing units in the game, does have a little bit lower defenses, unfortunately, and his team versatility is not super great. He really only functions super well on Trinity. He is also functional on Son Family, but outside of that, or a color-based team, he doesn't really have a super effective placement that boosts his value up even more. But again, just based off his blast damage dealing capabilities alone, as well with reducing the cost of his Blast Arts cards, that's why he's bringing up the tail end of Z tier here. As well, we have Ultimate Gohan, an amazing supportive, damage dealing, and defensive unit for your Son Family teams. This is the best green option you have for Son Family period right now. He has the save on his cover swap in. He's got permanent stacking buffs with his, green cards and stuff like that. So, again, exceptional unit, great on Son Family, which is a very high tier team. And, that's why he is, again, at the tail end of Z tier here. It's a very, very good unit. Moving down to S here, the unit bringing up the top of S is the brand new, or new-ish, of the Son Family Step Up, Goku unit right here. He is the support backbone of the Son Family team. He's pretty much like a unit that just exists to buff them via the green cards, via his main ability, do as much damage as he can, and then he just dies to buff the other units on the team even that much more. It's in combination with stuff like that, that's what makes the Gohan and the Goten that are in super tier even that much better and able to completely delete teams that much easier. So, again, by himself, he's not as good as most of the other Son Family units, but, with all those buffs in conjunction with his kids and his family, then he becomes a unit that really shines in the support department. Next up, Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks is an extremely good unit because he has the most broken feint technique in the game. Pretty much always guarantees a feint unless the character you're attacking is immune to stuff like that. And he's got relatively good defenses, fairly good damage output, and his green card, along with his ultimate in that feint, his green card can set up guaranteed hits on enemies as well. So he's a little bit more of a technical unit. You might not be using him all the time on your fusions teams, and probably not that often on hybrids teams either, but he is still an exceptional unit with a pretty good kit and reasonably competitive stats. So again, your fusion lineup, we'll get to the team builds in a second, but you generally may not always be using him. Next up, we have the Super Saiyan Bardock, extremely well-known unit, leader for your Trinity teams. The only reason he's falling off a little bit is because his stats aren't super competitive when compared to a lot of the new units we're getting right now. His damage output and his defenses aren't quite there, but he is still your mandatory leader again for any type of Super Saiyan 1 or Trinity teams. They don't function without him. His swap passives are still some of the best in the game. That crit chance and crit damage buff together is ridiculously powerful. You can combo him with the new Super Vegito, you can combo him with Goten, you can combo him with a lot of Super Saiyan 1 characters, you guys. There's never going to be a shortage of Super Saiyan 1 characters in this game, so I do believe this Bardock will always have some level of relevance, if for no other reason than a leader for that team. Next up here we have Slug. He is your main blue strike damage dealing unit for the regeneration teams, your alternative being the EX Blue Majin Buu for blast damage, but regeneration does function the best as a strike damage based team in most cases, and that means he combos really well with the Perfect Cell and the Red Zamasu to form your ideal regeneration strike based squad. He's got an extremely functional green card, and his blue card is really good as well, with high chance to paralyze and key reduction both on it. Again, Slug is an amazing character, it's just regeneration coming down a little bit, which is why he's falling down just a little bit in his value. Next up here, we have the Yellow Future Gohan, a unit that functions very similarly to the Yellow Son Family Goku unit we just talked about a minute ago. He functions on Future, Son Family, or hybrids, and again, he does fill that similar role, but he's got good damage output, he can take hits fairly well, and he's got a little bit more team flexibility than that Yellow Goku does, which is why he's still an extremely good unit, even though he's quite a bit older than some of the Son Family units we've seen that have just come out. Next up, Saiyaman 2, extremely effective unit for your female warriors team, or purple red with the other Saiyaman, but generally you'll want to use her on your starting lineup with Ribrianne and the EX Videl for an extremely powerful female warriors team. She comes with great buffs, great damage capabilities, some decent support, a good kit, and female warriors team is again just pretty much always powerful no matter what. They don't have any specific weakness, so that allows her to place relatively high on the tier list here. Following her up, the Saiyaman, another free-to-play unit that we got fairly recently. He is a glass cannon capable of phenomenal yellow card damage, and combining his main with his blue card gives an almost guaranteed feint in most cases. But again, you just have to be wary that he cannot take hits very well. He's functional on Son Family, I believe on hybrids as well, and purple red based teams, so his team flexibility may not be super ideal, but if you don't have Goten, then he's going to be your default purple unit for your Son Family teams. So there is that, and he's free, so everybody has him. Good damage, and that makes him score pretty high, you guys. Next up here, we have the combo of Final Form, Cooler, and Frieza. Now, they're not always necessarily going to be paired together, but they have just kind of been moving with each other because now Lineage of Evil team has increased in value. They have risen up the charts a little bit here. Of course, Final Form Cooler is your leader for Lineage of Evil, very similar to the Super Saiyan Bardock, although his buffs aren't quite as strong, and he's not very good as an anchor character, so hopefully Cooler won't be your last unit left alive, but he does provide that leadership to the Lineage of Evil tag, which makes him have guaranteed value right there. As well, Final Form Frieza, the yellow one, probably the oldest unit in the game that has aged the best, you guys. If you can think of another unit that's aged better than this Final Form Frieza, definitely let me know down in the comments, because I really can't think of anyone personally. He's, got the flat damage buff versus Saiyans, and with this game being predominantly dominated by Saiyans, he's pretty much always going to have some value to him. He's also got extremely functional green card and very high strike damage output, especially when comboed on Lineage of Evil. As well, he provides a great counter for Super Vegito and Goten and the Super Saiyan God Blue Vegeta, who you will be seeing a lot of in PvP. So that's why his value has gone up recently. Next up, Super Buu arguably has some of the best debuffs in the game for the enemy team. He's also got good damage output, be it Strike or Blast. Very similar to Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, he has the green card that can set up a guaranteed next hit on your enemy without them being able to swap out of it. But he is, again, he's another glass cannon, you guys. He cannot take hits very well, which means you want to use him properly, keep him out in battle for short periods of time, get the damage out, and then swap back to somebody else and get those debuffs in action. Now again, he is more predominantly blast-based as well. The ideal regeneration team usually does focus around strike, but he is a fill-in character, perfectly usable, especially if you're missing some of the other more ideal regen units like the Yellow Perfect Cell, for example. You could go with a blast build instead if you don't have Cell. Like me, I love using this Majin Buu. He's extremely functional, very dangerous unit. Just don't let him take too many hits. Next up, EX Videl, coming in into the S tier as another very high-ranking EX unit. She does outdo the own yellow sparking version of herself, mostly because she's got a better color role for the females team. You don't have too many other powerful purple females units other than Caulifla, but this Videl kind of rounds out the team a little better. There are still situations where you'll want to use Caulifla, who is also an S tier, for her flat damage buff for Saiyans and her strike damage, but this EX Videl, who unfortunately I don't have, came into the game as an extremely powerful EX unit. So she tiers here because female warriors, again, are always going to be an effective team, and she is on the main lineup if you happen to have her. Next up here, we have the Green Broly unit that just came out fairly recently. He suffers from two things, the Green Curse, again, that we had mentioned earlier, as well as the same kind of situation that we had with, who else did I talk about that was a movies unit that doesn't have good support really for movies right now? Broly. Just like Broly, Broly is suffering because the movies tag is not quite as relevant right now as what it used to be, and he doesn't really have placement outside of that, or like a color-based team, or like Trinity or something like that. So not as high team flexibility there, and the curse of being green. As well, he does have a pretty powerful barrier and a combo breaking mechanic, but unlike the green Super Buuhan here, he cannot combo out of his barrier with red and yellow cards. He can only combo out of it with blue cards, or else the combo will drop, and that does hurt his value a little bit there. It makes him less usable. You're going to have to barrier and then try and fake out the enemy to then guarantee your next hit against them. So that is important to note. He's got relatively good damage, but mostly a defensive unit, it seems like, because of the barrier, and really just barrier and blue card really make that character right there. Again, movies team, not as viable. Next up here, we have the Green Piccolo, who only dropped in value because, again, Regeneration team has fallen off a little bit, and because the Buuhan has come in to kind of replace his role on the team for that green spot. However, Piccolo is still amazing tank, exceptional heal, great cover damage mechanics, and is a fully functional unit. Again, just losing a little bit of value based off of team relevancy and new color units on that team. Next up, the Super Vegeta here from the GT Saga, or Super Saiyan Vegeta. He really only fits onto Trinity-based teams at the moment because there is no GT tag synergy, but he is another amazing debuffing unit, just falling off in value again, mostly because of, team diversity options. Next up, the Red God Goku, increasing in value because God Ki is now a fully relevant team. As well, he provides great Z ability buffs to that said team, so that, again, hoists him up a little bit here. He's got the crit and the health buff on the bench for God Ki, which is invaluable. However, you probably won't end up using him in battle very often if you have the Red EX Whis. The Red EX Whis is generally the better option to bring to the fight. However, if you, again, don't have him, then this Red God Q here is perfectly acceptable choice to bring to the fight if you need that red color. So, again, very good unit whose value has increased recently due to new team options. Next up, the Purple Caulifla. Again, a very effective female warrior, has damage buffs for Saiyans almost at all times, good strike damage output, just only falling off a little bit because the purple EX Videl may be the better option in many situations, and just the females team again just dropping a little bit down in relevancy due to all the new and exciting teams that are out you can run. Super Saiyan 3 Goku, always been a powerful unit, if for no other reason than his 5-star bench for any Saiyan units in the game. He comes with the blast defense and strike attack. So again, if you have him at 5 stars or higher, he pretty much belongs on the bench of any team that has Saiyans on it that you're using in battle. He is still functional in battle. He is just a glass cannon, so you do have to play Protect the Super Saiyan 3 Goku when you're using him, pop him out to do his damage, and then get him back out of the way is ideally the way to use him. Now, if he's not at 5 stars, probably not going to be as valuable, and his defensive stats will be even that much worse, but he is still an exceptional good unit for dealing high amounts of damage. That's what his kit is entirely focused on, is just dealing damage, and that's pretty much it. Also, he has the flat damage bonus against regeneration units, and as one of only a few units that has that, that adds value to him pretty much no matter what. Next up, Super Saiyan Kaba. Value is pretty high because he combos with pretty much any set of Vegetas in the game, be it you want to do like older Vegetas or the new God Vegeta. Just Kaba and any Vegeta in the game is a really good supporting option. He as well does work on Trinity, but there is no dedicated Universe 6 team in the game yet, so he is still kind of biding his time waiting for like Hit and maybe some other Universe 6 units to come out to really make that a functional meta. So that's why he's down a little further here, mostly due to team flexibility issues and pretty much always having to pair him with Vegeta to get the most out of him. Next up, Rildo, amazing immortal killing unit. Again, no endurance passives really bother Rildo. The only thing that's really holding him back is the lack of a GT team and the lack of a good Z ability that tags him with any other type of really usable team. He only functions on color-based teams unless you just want to throw him in there as a wild card unit, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it just does hurt the overall synergy of your team. So that's the main thing hurting his value there. Next up, Super Gogeta is a great bench unit for your Fusions teams. If you need red on your Fusions teams, you may want to bring this Gogeta, but 9 times out of 10, you'll probably end up bringing the free-to-play Vegito to be a unit that you can just throw in front of damage. This Gogeta here doesn't take damage very well, and although he's got a very nice offensive kit, he's just starting to get a little dated at this point, which is why he's falling down a little bit here on the tier list. Still at the end of S tier though. Perfectly functional, great unit though. Don't take that as too bad of a sign there. Next up, the A tier here. We start getting through these units a lot quicker since we're pretty much through all the new ones. Beerus's value has gone up because God's Key is a usable team now. He's got that good like platinum level equipment, and he combos with Whis extremely well. So Beerus is fairly functional at this point. Again, not the best unit, especially for God Key, but he is usable. Again, if you need green and you want to combo him with Whis, you will get functionality out of him now, where he used to be almost worthless before. Very similar with Chilled, value has gone up because you will see more Lineage of Evil units in the game now. He supports that purple role for Lineage of Evil, and he's got a good set of buffs if you happen to match up versus a Trinity team. So again, maybe not your best option for the active squad on your Lineage of Evil teams, but he definitely is an option, and he's not a terrible one. So that's why he's right here. Next up, Janemba, starting to fall off a little bit because you do have the better purple option with Super Boo for regen, and as well, this is another character like Perfect Cell who has suffered a little bit since the Battle version 2 changes. You cannot just infinitely backfloat anymore. You'll start to lose your Vanish meter, and that was one of Janemba's better playstyles, to float back, to use the green cards to shut down any pressure from the enemy, and then you can combo into that, and to restore his own Vanish, to almost always be able to dodge using his blue card, or again, backfloating. So since that technique is not as viable, you still can backfloat in this game, you guys. You just have to burst backfloat and periodically let off so you don't start losing your Vanish. So, but because of those nerfs to the combat system and the fact that Janemba never really had great damage output, is why he started to fall off a little bit here, you guys. Kaioken Goku, great on your Son family if he's 5 stars or higher. Other than that, he's a little bit weaker of a unit because his tag will only buff blue. You do also have this new Super Saiyan God Blue Goku, who arguably fits on the Son family team in the active spot a little better. However, this Goku's got some really good stats. He's got really good strike damage, post-transformation, good health, there's good stats all around. He's just starting to get a little bit dated now, you guys. There are some better options for your Son family teams between Super Saiyan Blue Goku here and this Blue Gohan, which does hurt his value a little bit there, you guys. Green Vegeta coming up next does not have a good placement on any specific team. He's just kind of a generic Saiyan character. His Z ability buffs green only, and he doesn't really have any tags that make you want to put him on one team over another. So, kind of similar to the Rildo. The biggest thing hurting this Vegeta is his lack of a dedicated team. However, he does have the Immortality passive. Again, something that is not as effective now as it was before, because you have so many endurance nullification characters in the game now, three of which are purple. So that's a huge threat for this Vegeta, why he's lost some value there. Pan, great on your Son family's team as a buffer unit, but again, there are better blue options to run on the active squad, and she's decent on females as well, but just losing some value because of her placements on teams. The Vegito here, coming into the game brand new as a free-to-play unit, kind of in the middle of the range. He is a defensive unit, but he's not that tanky. His damage output's not that great, and the best feature about him is honestly his lock-in mechanic, which you can use to strategically screw up your enemies really badly. But outside of that, he's not the best unit stat-wise or damage-wise, and that's kind of why he's a little bit lower on the tier list here. Next up, the Red Metal Cooler, an amazing support unit for Lineage of Evil. He's tagged as defense, however, he's not really a defensive unit. He's more of combat support by destroying cards, by, subbing in and debuffing the enemy in various ways. And he's got the heal, which is honestly, again, more supportive than defensive to me. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't usually use him on the active squad on my Lineage of Evil teams. I will use him if I need that yellow advantage since he is red. But generally, I'll run Final Form Cooler, Golden Frieza, and the yellow Final Form Frieza on the active squad. So, well, that's why his value here is maybe a little bit lower. He is an extremely good unit, but I think he's miscategorized as defense when he should be support. And perhaps the fact that I only have him at 2 stars makes him not as effective for me. But again, really good unit. Just Lineage of Evil is missing some elements to make it a top tier team. Next up here, Super Saiyan Gotenks. Either way, you will never use him over Super Vegito if you have him, which just makes him a dedicated bench unit on the Fusions teams. As well on hybrids, Goten would be the better option in 10 out of 10 situations. So he's just kind of dedicated to a bench role only. Now at 5 stars, he's got a great bench for the Fusions teams, double attack buffs, but not ultra functional in combat unless you happen to be missing another unit that would be better than him. Which he is usable. All these A tier characters are perfectly usable, you guys. They just usually suffer in comparison to newer characters that are better than them. Next up, Chi-Chi. She suffers from the curse of being green again. With so many powerful purple units in the meta, she usually dies really quickly and doesn't get to take full advantage of that 80% boosted damage to Son family that she has. So, very risky character to use, but still a good addition to the Female Warriors team and able to do amazing damage to any Son family members. Next up here, we got Trunks, who's just, mainlined on the future team, functional on hybrids, but dropped in value due to his team viability there. Good blast damage and good buffs and supporting qualities on him for supporting himself and his own damage. It's just, again, not a really good team to squeeze him into at the current meta in the game. Same thing with Super Saiyan 3 Red Goku. Extremely powerful early game unit. Has a arguably bad Z ability. If you're putting him on red, green based teams or whatever, red teams, he's fine. But again, similar to Rildo and this Vegeta right here, with a color-based Z ability, it's hard to squeeze him into a team, especially when the purple Super Saiyan 3 Goku has a much better Z ability for just broad Saiyan buffs. So there is that. And again, it's still usable, but perhaps not as good as the other version of himself. Next up here, Kale. Great defensive unit for your Female Warriors team, but the Saiyaman 2 would be the better option in 10 out of 10 situations. She does destroy cards, and again, she's got good defenses, but her damage output's not really there, and her main ability is not the most effective main ability in the game. It takes a while for it to get rolling once you've activated it. It's not just like, boom, instant buffs or anything like that. So she is not as valuable on the Female Warriors team as some others. However, when Hit comes out, Universe 6 comes out, I do expect her value to go up a little bit because we can use her there instead of just on the females team. You can use her on Trinity as well, but you have better options for Trinity with red units. I mean, the Super Saiyan Gogeta here would probably be better. But she is functional there, just, I don't know. Next up, the buff Super Vegeta here. Pretty much just a bench unit for your Super Saiyan 1 teams. Doesn't have really any good placement outside of that on the bench there. And his stats are not super competitive with new units we have coming out. Yellow Super Saiyan 2 Angel Goku, very similar to the Super Saiyan 3 Red Goku, the Green Vegeta, Rildo, just very bad Z ability that does not tag him on teams very well. He's just a yellow supporter, but he is probably the best just generic Saiyan defense unit. He's got good cover change mechanics, he can heal himself, he takes hits extremely well, and deals out a good bit of damage. It's just that, yeah, no really good team and spot for him there. Next up, EX Evil Boo, still amazing for an EX unit. However, we did cover that the regeneration team generally functions best being used as a strike damage based team. If you don't have Slug, it's perfectly fine to throw that Boo in there. And I do expect when Kid Buu comes out that you'll see a lot of this Boo probably on like all Majin Buu teams. I think that would be a cool team to run, a team of just nothing but Majin Buu. So I do expect to not really see him drop down too much more than this in the future, but I guess we'll have to find out. Just good damage dealing nuking unit. You use yellow card damage with him, blue cards, do as much damage as you can, then swap him out. Next up, the Fury Red Broly, losing a lot of value, even though he's free to play up to 7 stars with amazing stats, because he really only fits into movies teams. He's a great buffer for movies teams. His great passives for movies teams. They're just not as relevant right now as what they were before. Arguably, you could throw him on Frieza Force as well, since he does tag as a Frieza Force unit. It's just that team is even less competitive, I'd say, than movies at this current juncture in the game. So that's why he's lost some value there. Base form Goten. Good bench for your fusion team. He is usable in combat. He's got a good little heal and card restock. Good lower cost blue card damage starting off earlier in the battle. It's just not ideal for your main squad on fusions. 9 times out of 10, you'd probably be just using him as a bench unless you really need his green color advantage. Next up here, Android 18 Blue. She is got a lot of competition for female warriors with better blue units. So there is that. There's no reason to run her over Ribrianne if you have Ribrianne. Ribrianne is just way better. And that's pretty much all there is to it. She is functional on androids, but that team is not ultra competitive right now. And she does have good flat damage buff to Hybrid Saiyan, so there are still situations where you may want to use her. It's just she's sort of aging a little bit now and just becoming a little less relevant until we see a resurgence of androids with, Super Android 13 and Super 17, stuff like that, or just more value for her being on a female warriors team. It's just not quite there for her, which is why she's dropping down a little bit. Turles, another movies and color buffing tagged unit. Movies team not being as relevant right now is why he's dropping down. Purple, red, also not super relevant right now, which is why he's dropped down. Great green card, and he's amazing post his buffs. But, yeah, we just need a better movies squad to really consider, adding more value back onto him. We have the Future Trunks transforming unit next here. There are better options for him on your hybrids teams. So you got this blue Gohan right here is probably a better option. I don't know. He's an okay unit, you guys. Just again, the future meta is not super strong right now, and that's why he's lost out on a little bit of value. Next up here we have Krillin, who's another unit that was great post his buffs, but he does not have a Super Warrior themed team. He's got a questionable Z ability that only buffs blue, so his value is really brought down by the fact, again, he doesn't have a very solid team placement. If we get like an all-sparking Super Warriors team one day, I do expect Krillin's value to raise up, because he's actually a pretty dang good unit. Next up, Pikkon, only dropping off because, again, movies is losing a little bit of relevancy, and he has competition on his team for other units you'd probably want to bring to battle over him. Which is also very similar to Bojack. Great on the movies team, just not as relevant of a team right now as what it once was. Goku Black coming next really only fits onto the future team at the moment because he doesn't have the God Key tag. That really does hurt him. He can go on Saiyans also, but he just doesn't have good ways to really buff his own damage too well, and he's not super tanky or defensive either. He does have a heal with some damage buffs. It's just he's not the most effective future warrior. You would definitely be running the yellow perfect cell over this Goku Black 10 out of 10 times. So that's why he's placed a little lower here. EX-17, great EX unit, great Z ability that double buffs androids, but androids just not super relevant right now. And the curse of being green, which is a lot of purple units are going to murder stomp him right there. So that's why he's right there. Videl next. Just not the best female warriors unit. She is pretty good. She does good red card damage, has reasonably good sustain, but the purple EX Videl is arguably better than this yellow older one here. Just she's good at what she does, but she's not great at anything of what she does. So her kit could use, I don't know, a little bit more love to it. Next up, we have the EX Trunks, also a future member and hybrids member. Those are the two teams you'll see him on most often. Also has flat damage buffs against regen. So like the Super Saiyan 3 Goku, he's got that going for him. Just not too many good teams to use him on, not too many situations where you'll really see him shine these days in the current meta. And that's pretty much the same for this character and One-Hand Spirit Bomb Goku. Just not as competitive stats as what they once had. They struggle to find placement on teams, and just time is not treating both the Fist Coup and One-Hand Spirit Bomb Goku super well. On both of the teams you may consider running them on, or any of the teams you may consider running them on, you generally have better options than those two units. Next up, this Trunks right here. He's suffering a little bit because he's like the only unit that actually has the full-on GT theme going on, where he buffs GT units based on his supporting abilities. It's just there's no real good GT team yet. I do expect that to change a lot in the future, and in that case, his value might go up a lot. But for now, just no GT team means that this Trunks is not the best. Next up, Green Cooler has been full-on replaced on Lineage of Evil by the new Golden Frieza. There's now no reason to use this unit for any other reason than to bench him to buff your other Cooler units. Since he does have a movies tagged buff, he's not going to help out Golden Frieza. He's not going to help out the yellow Final Form Frieza as well, which does hurt his value a little bit. And again, the fact that the green Golden Frieza is just way better than him and outclasses him offensively in pretty much every way means you won't be using him that often. That's why he's losing value. Bardock here is a great bench unit for your Saiyan-based teams if you need strike damage on the bench. His stats are in no way competitive anymore. The only really good thing he had going for him, recently has been the lock-in, but with his stats not really keeping up with any of the other new units, and the curse of being green in a purple heavy meta, his value is just kind of starting to fall off even a little bit more now, you guys. Ginyu and Android 16 both have really only one team they function on, via Frieza Force for Ginyu, Androids for 16. Ginyu, he's a neat unit, but his stats are just not really competitive anymore. The best reason to bring him for is the extra green card that he brings to battle. Ginyu Force team, completely irrelevant at this point in time. So, again, team flexibility hurts him a lot. Only Frieza Force for Ginyu, really. Android 16 is one of the best tanking and defensive units in the entire game, but his offenses are so bad that it really hurts his value that much. Even as a tank, which he does really well at, he can't do any damage with his blue card. His blue card almost does less damage than using a red card with him. So just because of the fact that he really can't put out any type of damage numbers is why he's bringing out the tail end of A tier here. Next up is B tier. We got characters that have just been recently replaced, or they're outdated, or they were never honestly that great even when they first came out. The first one being the Green Majin Buu. Generally, you'll only want to use him on the bench of your regeneration teams. You have the Green Piccolo and the Buuhan, which both do better damage, better tanking, and better support than the Green Boo. However, the Green Boo's got the lock-in. That's really the only exploitable thing about him that adds any type of real value to using him. So that's why he's relatively low down here, you guys. Next up, Rage Vegeta. The day he came out, he did not have good team placements. The purple-purple-red team was really big in the meta when he came out, and that team had already had a complete roster. The Vegeta came out, didn't do anything better than any of the units that were already on that team. His supporting qualities are decent. His damage is okay, but he really doesn't shine at anything and does not have a good team to really run on. So that's what hurts his value significantly there. The next up here, we have the EX Android 18, the future version. The only reason she's not on the same page as the other green 17 and the tier above is because she is the Blast variant and she's not quite as powerful or useful. Now that Blast is a little bit better in the meta though, she might, increase in value a little bit. Just the androids team, again, just not super relevant right now. Dabura, coming out next, has no team whatsoever. There is no Majin squad in this game, so he's another Rildo-esque unit with a bad Z ability and no true team placement. His main ability is kind of weak. His passives are not the best. But he brings the green card to battle. Again, that's really his best quality, is bringing that extra green card to battle. He doesn't rate very high, you guys. Until he gets a Majin-based team, he's just kind of lost in the woods over here. Next up, Majin Vegeta. Extremely cool unit that I'm so disappointed that they did him this badly. But Majin Vegeta would have been a perfectly functional, just great unit to have on almost any Saiyan team or Super Saiyan 2 themed team. However, he's got a debuff that affects your own team. Every time you swap around with Majin Vegeta, he hurts the defenses of your own characters. And that, by itself, pretty much is a nail in the coffin of the value for this character. If he did not do that, he would be significantly higher on the tier list. As well, his ultimate arts technique can be canceled if he doesn't use the green cards to shorten the time limit on it. And it blows him up too. So he does have some pretty negative aspects that drag him down quite a bit when he could have been such an amazing character, you guys. His damage numbers are really competitive even now. But just all the other stuff he has working against him just really hurts him, you guys. Next up, DKP, the Demon King Piccolo. Bench unit on regeneration teams. Does not really have any other placement in the game. You have the yellow Perfect Cell again, who is regeneration's default yellow strike damage dealer. There's absolutely no reason to run DKP over that yellow cell. None whatsoever. Even if you don't have yellow cell, you probably still don't want to run this DKP because he's not very competitive with newer units. Next up, Yamcha here had a very interesting trolley kit, just not very competitive stats, you guys. His entire usefulness is based around him countering and building the home run meter, which can be somewhat difficult to use because if you have Yamcha out on the field, enemies are going to anticipate that that's what you're going to want to do. So they'll try and play around it. So because he doesn't have the stats to make up for that fact, and there's no Super Warrior team still, poor Krillin and Yamcha here, there's no Sparking Tien, no Sparking Roshi, no Piccolo that's dedicated to really being a good Super Warrior as opposed to regeneration. So again, that hurts this Yamcha here a good bit. The Blue Bulma, support for the female Warriors team. Her value is mostly dragged down because you have much better blue options for your female Warriors team. Between Ribrianne and the blue Sparking 18, there's really almost no reason to break out this Bulma and use her. Her green card is pretty nifty, and her animations are cool with the Uzi and the rocket launcher and stuff. But again, just due to heavy competition within her own team, her value is significantly lower. The Red Cell, very similar to DKP, is just a bench buffer for your regeneration teams. There really is no other place you want to put him or use him. His stats are not competitive, his damage numbers are not very good, and he will die very quickly if he gets beat on by any type of blue units. So unlike the other Perfect Cell, this one is pretty much non-competitive and restricted to a bench role for now. Same thing with the Super Saiyan 2 Purple Gohan. He just hasn't aged very well. His stats are not competitive. He doesn't have any utility in his kit that really keeps him useful after all this time. You can bench him for Son family or hybrids without any real problems, but you probably won't want to be using him in battle. You have better options with Goten, by far, Goten would destroy the value of this Super Saiyan 2 Gohan on a Hybrids team or Son family. Next up, Purple 17, non-competitive stats, bad Z ability that only buffs color. He's aged out, you guys. He's an older unit that has not aged nearly as well as the yellow Final Form Frieza, which is unfortunate. And again, Android's not the very best team right now, so his value is suffering. Same thing with Kamikolo. You have a plethora of other blue options that are better for the regeneration team. Again, very similar to the blue Bulma with this blue Kamikolo. There's no reason you'd want to run Kamikolo over Slug. I doubt you would probably even want to run him over the EX Evil Boo. His stats are not very competitive. His kit is geared towards dealing damage mostly to androids, which you don't run up against in PvP very often. So his value, again, pretty low. C tier next, we have Goten, Trunks, both of which are just non-competitive stats, but great benches for your Hybrids teams. Especially if you have them at 5 stars or higher, they will bench your Hybrids teams exceptionally well, but you again have better options for their colors on pretty much all the teams you would run them on. So that hurts their value quite a bit, and the fact that neither of them will take hits very well is why they are kind of down here towards the bottom, you guys. Green IT Goku, just like all the other characters like Rildo and Turles and all those other color boosters, he's got a really bad Z ability. His damage output is non-competitive whatsoever. The only value in his kit whatsoever is the save that he has on his cover change, which can be used twice. Other than that, he's non-competitive in any way. Green Trunks, that's buff. Increases the cost of his own cards, so he hurts himself with his own kit. Not damage-wise, but just it makes him harder to use because you have to pay more for his own red cards. The characters that have debuffs in their own kit that affect themselves, generally not super valuable characters, but he is a great bench for your Hybrids teams. The yellow Goku, coming down to the very bottom of C tier. The problem with this Goku is Legends Road doesn't have a full team yet, and there is absolutely no other team in the game where you'd want to pick this yellow Goku to run over a better yellow unit. Just look at all the yellow units on the chart above him. In which team, in which situation would you want to run this Legends Road Goku over one of those units? There's really no situation where that's applicable, and that's why his value is so low, you guys. Now, when we do have a fully meta, usable Legends Road team, that very well may change and his value might go up, but for now, you guys, there's no real point to using him. Low grade, not going to go over every single one of these characters, but they're just characters that are desperately in need of an update due to non-competitive stats, not very good Z abilities, not very good kits, and just, again, low damage, low defense. Those are all reasons that would net a character down here. Now, the yellow Gohan, for example, is still a great bench unit for Hybrids and Son family teams, mostly Hybrids, but yeah, outside of that, there's not really any reason to use any of these characters except certain ones are good benches in certain situations. Now, again, let me repeat, now that we've finished the tier list and everything has been placed, the balance adjustments for at least 5 of these characters that are probably somewhere down here in the lower end of the list will be happening soon, so we will have to rearrange probably about 5 units. So the reason I went ahead and made this tier list now is because I don't expect that to be like ultra game breaking or just, out of this world significant. But for example, we do know that this red Super Saiyan Vegeta is one of the units that's going to be getting a buff, and that might place him, somewhere up in A or S, potentially even Z if they power him up that much. But do keep a lookout for that. I will be making adjustments for the balance changes, but as is, this list here is fairly accurate and set in stone the way it is. I do want to thank Rusmir Gorbachev as well from the Facebook group for helping me with some of the back-end stuff here, getting everything aligned. I'm pretty confident in where this list is right now. And that's pretty much it for the tier list, you guys. Now we do have the team guides to go over here, and let me get myself out of the way. This part usually doesn't take very long because you can just look at the information and replicate it, build the teams as you see fit. Now both of these images are posted up on my Twitter, and as well I will maybe upload them to Google Drive and post a link for that if you'd like to get them that way as well, so that you can keep these images for reference here. But going over the teams, regeneration really hasn't changed much except for Buhan has been added to the core lineup there. You do have a plethora of other optional characters. I did not add the EX Janemba to the optional list. He is optional. He's just not super great, and I just was feeling lazy, didn't really add it. But again, for regeneration, you could squeeze the EX Janemba somewhere in here also. Females has not changed at all since the last time I put out this image. Really, I mean, I switched Mai with the Sandman 2 on the core, but no new females have been added to the game since last time I did this. So again, no real changes there. Fusion has changed. We have a full meta viable team build for this team now at this point. You do have the core of Vegito, Gogeta. You can sub out optionals accordingly, and if you don't have every single one of these units, you can use this bench down here from God Key to maybe fill in some of the gaps. Since they're all pretty much Saiyans, you'll get the health buff, damage, and defense. So that is an option, you guys, but this team is fairly rigid. There's not too much flexibility on it yet because there are only 7 members. So there's not much room for swapping characters out, you know, when you compare it to something like Regen up here that's got like 10 plus members and different options. So again, I do expect Fusion Team to be growing in relevancy, but this is kind of your main layout right now. Lineage of Evil hasn't changed much. I just subbed in the Golden Frieza and switched the Metal Cooler back to optional. You do have the option of EX Chilled as well, who very similar to the Janemba. I just didn't add because I was getting lazy. But he is an option. He's just not extremely good. Probably nowhere near as good as the Yellow Final Form Frieza if you have access to him instead. So there is that. Again, this is another team I do expect to be growing as time goes on and we continue to get powerful units that will fit into this team. So before I go forward to the next column, I do want to as well state that the list right here that you're looking at for these team builds, this is not in order of any type of rank. You know, these teams are just on here. They're not on here. Like Regeneration is not the best team in the game because it's in the top left right here. It's just, they're just here, you guys. So do keep that in mind. The tier list was in order. This team build guide is not really in any type of specific order. That's important to note. Next up, Trinity has not changed very much. There's tons of Super Saiyan 1 characters in the game with tons of ways to build this team. The only thing I really changed is added a core version that had the new Vegito on it. Of course, you have the option of doing, you know, Vegito and Gogeta if you want to do blue, blue, purple. But yeah, just build that team how you see fit, you guys. Tons of Super Saiyan 1 units, so tons of options for Trinity. Movies has not changed at all. No additional movies units have come out since last time I made this, so we don't really have to spend any time there. Same thing with Future. No additional Future units have come out since the last time I made this, so no changes there either. Next up here, Son family has changed quite a bit. We have a new core of Gohan, Goten, and Goku. You could also run like Gohan, the Blue Gohan and Goku, or Goten, Blue Gohan, and Goku. Really, that's going to be your main options for dealing damage with Son family. This Gohan and this Goten right here are both absurd in terms of their damage output, and that's doubled up almost by the fact they get buffs from this Goku with his green card, with his main, and when he dies. So Son family, this team right here is probably the current most effective team in the game. And yeah, it's extremely good, you guys. Next up, PPR Sandman. This was just on here because it needed to fill space. It was on here the last time I made the chart. I added Vegito to the optional, but just a fun team you could maybe run if you have the units and you're bored of running other teams. Androids as well, nothing has changed here. It's just taking up space because it is a viable team. It's just not as effective as what it once was. Hybrids has changed a little bit, kind of similar to Son family here. We have the addition of the Goten, the new Gohan. New Goku won't fit on this team very well, but we did have those 2 new hybrids to add to this team build here to try and max it out and get the most damage out of it as possible. I would say overall, Son family is probably going to be the more effective team than hybrids, but it's not too far off, you guys. They're just missing, you know, certain elements that Son family has access to, but I'm sure hybrids as well is going to continue to grow and be an amazing team as they keep adding powerful hybrids. Next up, God Key. Another brand new meta that's extremely functional. You have the core here, Vegeta, Goku, Whis. That's, in my opinion, the most effective choice. But if you are running up against a lot of other powerful purple units like Vegito or, you know, just anything along those lines, you can sub in the yellow God Vegeta. He's extremely good and useful now as well. And if you want to play with the Whis and the Beeruses, they can do some interesting stuff also. But I truly believe that the Goku, Vegeta, and Whis is your best core combination for this team. And of course, if you don't have every single unit, you can throw on some generic Saiyans buffers, since most of the team will end up being Saiyans. That's about it, you guys. Again, I will post this image up on, well, it's already up on my Twitter. I might just add it to Google Drive as well and share it that way. So you guys do have both of these images for references. Outside of that, we'll save that for a different video there. But yeah, that's about it for your team guides and tier lists, y'all. Again, there will be small updates at the point in time when the balance changes happen. So we'll go ahead and worry about that when it happens. But again, I stand by this list. I do feel that it is accurate for where we are at in the meta on the 11th of June as of me making this video, correct? Yes. So that's about it for today, you guys. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider leave it a thumbs up, share it, spread it out. Helps boost the algorithms for YouTube, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys that help me grow around here and support the videos. If you're new around here, consider subscribing so I can see you again on future videos. Make sure you jam out that notification bell also. And again, there'll be lots of Legends content up and coming, and hopefully we can start expanding into some other cool new games as well, and some of the stuff in E3 starts coming out in the future. But for now, that's about it, you guys. Leave a comment down below. What do you feel about the tier list? Do you think it's accurate? What character placements do you agree with? Do you disagree with? There's always going to be someone out there that doesn't agree with the stuff I put out. And that's fine, you guys. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. So again, comment down below with your thoughts on the state of the game, the meta, the tier list, the team guides. Let me know what's on your mind. And until next time, you guys, have a great day. I'll see you soon.